welcome to the kickoff of the Demon Live Zoom series. So this is the first of several of these that are going to happen. All the brainchild of the fabulous Amy Unell, who is the reason we are all here. So thank you to Amy for putting all this together and for everything that you do. I know you don't want the praise, but you're getting it, so you're just gonna have to deal with it. Couple of little things of housekeeping. We are recording this Zoom session, so this is going to be on the Demon Lounge. I wanna give shout outs to everyone involved with Duke in LA, at Duke in New York, who helped with putting this together, and especially Olivia and Quentin, Duke seniors, who work with the Duke Independent Film Festival. They really helped put this together too, so thanks guys. And they're gonna post information for anyone who's interested in how to submit your own work and watch the virtual film festival. That's gonna be in the chat of this Zoom. So the way this is going to work, just to make things easy, and since this is the first time we're trying one of these things and there's so many people, we took questions in advance. So for this one, there won't be live questions. It'll be the questions that we've gotten that we thought were the most helpful and useful for everybody. And I'm going to have two of the alum panelists answer each question. But I want to let the other panelists know that if you're not one of the two people who's tackling a specific question and you have something you really want to toss in, don't be shy. That's totally fine too. So I want the other 7 panelists to introduce themselves and tell us who you are, where you are, what year you are, and what you're up to now. So I want to start with my classmate, Amy. Amy, say hi and tell us about yourself.
Hi, I am Amy Gravitt, Trinity 95, as Dave said. I am currently in Los Angeles, and I'm the Executive Vice President of HBO Programming Comedy Series, which means that I'm in charge of all of our scripted half-hour series.
Translation, she's a rock star. Vahradian, Mark.
Yes, here I am. Mark Vahradian, Trinity 89, as hard as it is to say that. I'm a film producer at Paramount. I've been out here for about 30 years doing studio movies for the most part. And I was a film executive at Disney for a long time, and I've been a producer on the producing side for an equally long time. And I do movies like Transformers and Deepwater Horizon, and usually visual effects oriented, larger scale movies, but I've done I've done a few smaller ones too. And I work a lot with Amy on Demon and a lot with Dave actually on Demon LA. So I help to organize new alumni and current students as they come and try and make entry into Hollywood.
Essentially, if Mark Wahlberg is in the movie, Mark Vahradian probably produced it.
That's true.
Including an upcoming movie.
That's right, Infinite.
Right, okay, I know all about it.
Yeah.
The fabulous Geeta Patel. Hey, Geeta.
Hi, I'm Geeta, and I'm in LA. I'm Trinity 98, and I'm a director for the most part. I am a writer as well. I started an independent film, and I made a couple documentaries. I worked as a writer's assistant when I first got to LA. And now I work mainly for the last 4 years. I've been doing television directing, and this year I'm working on The Witcher. Last year I did Dead to Me. So I've done comedy and drama.
She also made, one of the documentaries she made is called Meet the Patels, and it's about her family, and it is hilarious. Highly, highly recommend it. Robb Chavis.
Yep, Robb Chavis, Trinity 98, former lawyer turned writer, and I'm currently a producer level writer on Blackish on ABC. That's pretty much it for right now. I work on films and write my own features and all of that stuff, just staying busy the way a writer has to, but that's where I'm working right now.
Robb was one of the keynote speakers at Demon Weekend a couple months ago, and he had the crowd hanging on his every word. Where's Julien?
Right here. Julien Thuan, Trinity 97. I'm an agent at United Talent Agency. I also supervise the Film Literary Group, which is writers, directors, producers on the film side. I also supervise the Media Rights Group, which is our book to film and television, also journalists, articles, etc. And, in addition, I represent a bunch of, people who work in both film and television and in publishing.
And we have two young alums with us as well. Hi, Chandler.
Hello. Hi. My name is Chandler, and I am a documentarian. I had a fellowship through CBS, and I currently work at Sundance Institute in the Impact Engagement and Advocacy Department. And so many words in that, but essentially we're here to support artists, particularly in impact producing and advocacy work at the field level.
Thank you so much. And Jade is with us. Say hi, Jade, and tell us about yourself.
Hey everybody, I'm Jade. I'm in LA right now. I'm class of 2015. Did Duke in LA, and I am an aspiring writer, and I'm also a director of development for Fighting 99th Entertainment, a small company that my boss has an overall deal with Amazon right now. So, yeah.
Great. All right, so that's all the housekeeping. So I want to get to some of the questions that were submitted. I want to start with a question that I want to point towards Amy, Gravitt, and also Chandler. And it involves what work is like and a work life is like now. So obviously with everybody working from home, Amy, what does working from home look like for you? And then Chandler, answer after Amy, please.
I would say there are so many more emails, very practically speaking. It's interesting, production aside, when this hit, I had a couple of shows about to go into production. So the first couple of weeks were just about pivoting those shows and sort of winding them down until we can all go back to work safely again. So there were sort of 2 weeks of figuring that out, and now it's calmed down into what I guess is the pace of the new normal, which is both very much the same in that there's a lot that we can do working with writers, not seeing one another. But I have to say I do miss that. I do miss just seeing people face to face and talking face to face. And I think there are some details that can get lost, so you have to be just sort of extra careful. And on top of things, and I have two not small children at home, but I have an 8-year-old and an 11-year-old. So I'm going back and forth between supervising Google Classroom and working in a way that they didn't necessarily blur together before all of this.
Have there been any really hard decisions that this whole situation has forced you to make?
I would just say the whole situation is hard, but not necessarily one hard decision to point to. Like, we haven't changed the fate of a show because of this. I feel lucky in that way. Good.
How about you, Chandler? What's different now?
Yeah, well, also so many emails, so many Zooms. I've never been on a platform this much. And so I think that just logistical, it's a lot of screen time. And then for the Institute, we do a lot of programming and events. And so we had like 58 events planned from March to August that all had to be canceled or reformatted. So it's a lot of shifting our thinking of like, what does engagement look like? How are we participating with artists? How does this affect like long-term? Because I think this is an opportunity to sort of reimagine how we interact with audiences and think about accessibility and those sorts of things that have been big conversations. And so there's this like bucket of urgent things of just like supporting the artists that come to our programs and our labs, and then long-term thinking of what does this mean for Sundance in the future.
Anyone else who's on this panel that's had like a major, I mean, we've all had upheaval, but have anyone had something just that's been kind of devastating and harder to deal with? Don't be shy.
No, I mean, for me, I don't know about devastating. Devastating will be laying people off and people who have families and need the financial, income of a show. That's really hard. I haven't had to do that yet. We had a movie though that was set up in Malaysia, and they were counting on that, and we had a good relationship with the production entity there. And as Corona came through Asia, we moved, our insurance was canceled for Asia, so we moved it to Dominican Republic, and we were setting up for Dominican Republic. And then basically the world was shut down, so we basically stopped, and we were meant to be starting that movie in a month. So we had crewed up to some extent, and all of that has to be shut down. And now, it's just a waiting game, and the production difficulties are, we don't even know what those will be yet. I mean, we don't know that we can get insurance. That's not a studio movie. And what's interesting about that is the insurance companies will not insure for coronavirus related delays to that movie. So if you're making a movie at a major studio, the studios self-insure, so it doesn't really matter. They're willing to take the risk on. If you're making it in this case, it's Lionsgate, or if you're making it purely independently, you cannot make the movie without insurance, and you cannot get insurance for Corona. Therefore, the banks will not finance your movie because you don't have insurance. And what I'm being told is, last time this happened, around September 11th, the solution was the United States government would back the banks to back movies, believe it or not. So they're waiting for the U.S. government to say, we will support your movies, and that's what they did before, and we're hoping that's what they'll do again.
Great. Next question I want to direct towards Julien and also you, Mark, because two of you are so involved with helping students and recent alums navigate the job market. And I'm looking at the Zoom and I see a lot of young faces. I see my friend Rebecca down in Cleveland, Tennessee. Hey, Rebecca, how's it going? I'm assuming that's where you are. You don't have to yeah, okay, thumbs up, great. So this is a question, these are kind of two questions that came through that I want to group together. I thought these were really good questions, which are, what are your suggestions for how students and alums can navigate their internship and job search during these uncertain times? How can students and alumni find a balance between staying in touch with alumni about career opportunities, but also respecting the fact that a lot of people are having difficulties of their own? So Julien, what would your advice be to people?
I mean, there's no way to address the question without sort of first saying what the bad news is. And I think the bad news is that, obviously as well reported and publicized, every company is dealing with financial challenges. And so I think that it's very likely that you'll run across some hiring freezes, hopefully, not a lot of dramatic layoffs, although some of that stuff's going to happen as well. So the tone of every conversation, the tone of every, kind of submission of resume or request to have information is layered with that. But in my mind, you kind of have to dismiss that and say, what is the good news? And the good news is everybody else is in the same exact position, and this will end, and then there will be lots of opportunity again. And, I think that one of the great things about being a Duke alum is that, you are a very strong candidate in many cases for a lot of these opportunities. And so I think it's really about the approach. And in my mind, you want to try to find your gateway alums that you can, if you already know them, or if you already have a relationship, or you already touched base, maybe it's a good time to ask for, a touch base, and really ask for advice, or ask for referrals for a couple of other people that you might contact. And I think if they can open those doors, it makes those conversations a lot more productive. And I think it also disarms them, so that people don't feel like you're going and saying, I need a job right now. You're going in and saying, I understand the situation, but I'm trying to further build my network, for the time when it does make sense.
So would you say that people should kind of just hit pause right now and because it's like on the one hand, you want to maintain the relationship, but you don't want to be like, why am I emailing someone now when they clearly don't have a job to offer? But then when the floodgates open, you don't want to be one of 100 people who's emailing the same person, like when the world opens up again, as the government.
I would just take, I mean, I come from, my general philosophy is there are no real secrets. So if you're calling somebody and not saying I'm calling you to maintain my relationship, there's this unspoken thing. So you might as well just say it, in your email, say, I know that things are weird. If you are available or have any time the next couple of weeks, I'd love to just touch base. And I think that makes it easier. If someone says, no, I can't do it, or if they don't respond, that's okay. I just think you cast your net with, as many people as you feel comfortable doing that with. And again, if you find certain people that you've already established a relationship with, that's a great place to start, because a lot of those people will open doors for you. They'll have a greater sense of tone and of where people stand in terms of that process. I know that certain recruiters that we have, still maintain those conversations and still try to keep, they're still open to discussing and vetting candidates, even though they don't have as much to offer in this particular moment. But I think we all operate, aside from the personal experiences and struggles that everyone's dealing with, and the realities of the economic situation. I think everyone operates with the belief that there'll be opportunity on the other side of this. So most of the forward-thinking people that you encounter should be open to having conversations, I would assume.
Mark, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, it for sure, Dave, the idea that you would graduate in May and come out here and get a job in June, I think is probably unlikely at the moment, just because there will be contractions, people will be laid off. There isn't as much to do right now. That being said, when the doors open, it's going to be a rush to catch up. I mean, from the production side, from movie side, we're already jockeying to hire or to hold crew members, because we know the minute it's authorized, there's going to be 100 movies that are trying to launch at the same time. So you have to be prepared to immediately jump on it the minute those doors open. I mean, like, leave that afternoon. When they say, the president today said there's 3 stages to the reopening. When they hit stage 3 and the gyms open, you better be out here, because shit's going to happen. And so I would stay very alert. In terms of internships, we are hiring interns now all the time. We do Zooms with our interns. Part of our intern program is educational, and we lecture. And all of that, we do that on Zoom now. Most of the work that interns do is reading scripts, writing up analysis of scripts. I actually think that interns might have a better chance for face-to-face time now than they had when they're in the office, because I'm not in the office that much. But I'm on Zoom all the time, and I'd say take advantage of that. What Julien said is right. Like this is a time. I'm getting outreach from all kinds of people, from agents who want me to talk to directors or meet actors, or people that I never would have had time to have an in-person meeting with on Zoom. And I think the same thing will be true for people, looking to come into the business. We're now after 2 or 3 weeks of this, so adjusted to this. I get on with people face to face that I've never, met before, and we have great conversations. And I come out of those conversations, as opposed to a phone call, I come out feeling like I know them a little bit more, and and you get a sense of somebody's personality and their vibe and their energy and all that. And so that side of it's been good. But for internships, I'd say apply as always. I think everybody's still going to hire interns. You'll get to avoid the coffee runs and all of that stuff, and you'll get hopefully all the benefits of reading and learning, about how decisions are made on material and things like that. And I would say, again, this question depends a little bit on what you're trying to do. If you want to be an actor, you can't really be an actor right now. If you want to be a director, you can't really be a director. Nothing's being made. If you want to be a writer, you can write all day long, right? I mean, that's something, your life has not been changed at all by any of this. And, you know, if you want to be a producer, if you want to, you know, be an agent or whatever, you know, you have the problems that we talked about. But I would say, you know, I'm ranting a little bit here, but I would say prepare yourself now for very quick entry into this business. And I think I gave Amy a list of that we give out to our interns called Welcome to Hollywood, which will be posted somewhere. Amy, I can't remember where, on the lounge or something. Basically lists the books you should read that will get you up to speed, the blogs and websites that you should be looking at every day, and trade magazines, and basically all the ways that you should be prepared when you walk in the door here. So if you're competing with a lot of people when the door is open, you better be very, very well prepared. You better know who everybody is. You better know what's been happening in the business. You better be reading this stuff every day, and come out here ready to go.
Incidentally, Amy put all of our emails in the chat, so
Okay.
you know, feel free to take a note of those. And she's also, you've already just let us know that it's in the Demon Lounge, what you're talking about. Okay, see,
Yeah.
look at you, Amy, always on the ball. Here's a question for Robb and Geeta, because you guys are like what I call the creators here of the group. The question is, many of you have directed your own shows, written scripts, started your own companies. What's your advice for students and alums trying to spearhead their own creative projects right now? Robb?
Like Mark just said, writers write and writers can be writing right now. So my show wrapped about a month ago. Since then, I've finished up a feature that I was working on for a while. I've pitched and tried to sell a show. I'm trying to get people to read a show that I finished up, you know, a couple of months ago. And I'm trying to come up with new projects right now to keep going. So if you're a writer, it's a self-driven hustle business, and you have to keep writing. Like you know, hopefully it's something that you're in love with. That's the only way I can get through anything. But your ability to not stay on that one thing that you're in love with and not be willing to like jump to the next thing and the next thing is what keeps you writing. Like it's not a linear business where something ends and there's something standing there waiting for you. You've always got to have 3 or 4 things, hopefully, kind of cooking and in various stages of completion, so that hopefully you can go from vine to vine as things go away. So, you know, right now I'm writing. As far as like in this specific situation, you know, the place that it gets a little unsure is normally my writer's room would ramp back up either at the end of May or early June. And I think that's what we're planning on doing, but not knowing when we'll go into production. Like right now, they'll let the writers go and we'll hopefully all be together or on a Zoom or something to get things going. But nobody knows when they're going to let 150 people stand on a sound stage and work together again. So we could hit a wall at episode 5 or 6 where the studio says, everybody go home until we can kind of see what this is and know when, you know, when we're going to actually shoot something and when we're actually going to put something that we can get on film and put on television. So that's out there. Right now it feels a little bit further out there because we wouldn't start shooting anything until probably August, September anyway. So, you know, we haven't missed that goal yet. But that's definitely in the back of my mind as far as what I'll actually be able to do. But in the meantime, I'm just writing. You know, the thing that I hate is that usually now when I'm off, I'm going out to meet all the other writers that I've worked with before, people I've never met with. I always push all of my meetings till this window to be like, I'm super busy, but like in April, we'll hang out. And like none of that is happening at all.
Right.
So I'm falling a little bit behind on my networking and stuff, but I'm writing my butt off, so.
Geeta, how about you?
You know, there's a quarantine answer to this question and a non-quarantine answer. I think in the situation of us being, you know, stopped, I am working, because I'm a writer director, I have been wanting for now 4 or 5 years. I've just been like, oh, I want to go back to my independent roots. I love independent film. I want to, you know, pull my scripts out that I wrote. I want to make those films. And I have not done it in 4 or 5 years. I've been, you know, doing gigs and working for other people's ideas. And so what I'm doing right now is I pulled out those scripts. I have been working on them, reading them, going through story, you know, going back to my notes. I don't know if anyone else on this panel has this, but I never am an expert at story. I'm constantly going back to 3-act structure, you know, protagonists, arcs. I mean, I'm constantly re-educating myself. And so I think that's something that everyone can do, whether you're a writer, director, producer. Story is so important to our jobs. Actors, you need to understand how to arc your character, how to arc a scene. These are things that you don't learn overnight. These are things that I think is, you know, these are ongoing education that I believe go on throughout our careers, no matter how old we get. So that's something that I always do, even when I'm stopped. And I encourage everyone to do that right now. You know, look at the shows you love, the films you love, analyze them, understand why they were built the way they were built. They will affect everyone's jobs. Think about, you know, if you read a script and then after that you watch the film, don't watch the film yet. Ask yourself, how would I approach this scene? How would I, if I was an actor, if I was a writer, if I was a producer, what are the things that could happen? I mean, there's just so much about story that I think we don't spend enough time on. We're also busy chasing these titles. I want to be a this, I want to be a that. This is the foundation story. So Mark has a list that he, you know, he's given everybody for books and things like that. I think that's really the way to go, is self-study. And I'm happy to also send out some books, particularly for directing. But honestly, story is story. You don't, you know, to be any of these things, that's the heart of it. Other than that, I think outside of quarantine, if you have an idea for a project or you have a story you want to tell, I think there's two sides of me. The independent filmmaker in me, having started there, I just did it. I had something I was passionate about. It was a story. It wasn't about being I didn't even know I was ever going to be I didn't ever know that I was going to be a director. I started just wanting to be a storyteller. I was a writer's assistant. I was so insecure about my own ability. I thought I was the biggest idiot in every room. I just thought everyone else was so talented. And then I fell in love with this story in a war zone. These people were dying in this war and I just wanted to cover it. And so that's what I did. I covered the war. I put it on my credit card. It took 8 years. Sundance funded it. Next thing you know, I'm in the Sundance labs and I'm a director. So I think one thing is to just follow your heart. Do what you love. Don't worry about what you want to be. Just tell the stories you want to tell. And that means you need the experience as a human being to have stories to tell. So I think that's one side of it. The second side of it is if you don't feel ready or you don't have the resources to make something the way you want to make it, if it's a big action film that Mark would make, you know, then I would say take time to learn. Go work for people and absorb. I worked as a writer's assistant for 8 years, and those were the most amazing 8 years. I learned so much. And so I think there's nothing wrong with that. Take your time. You don't need to just jump in and be it right away.
That's great. And I was thinking, I came across this video on Facebook that was shared by a friend of mine. Maybe you guys have seen it. It's like there's this woman and she looks like she's definitely acting 2 different parts, and maybe she wrote it and directed it, but it's this woman today and she meets herself from 4 months ago. Has anyone seen this? And it's a conversation between her now and her 4 months ago. And the her now is telling her, like, this is what it's really funny. I'll try to find it and post it. But it's hilarious. And I just thought, wow, how enterprising of this woman who clearly has aspirations to do something. And she took advantage of the fact that we're all at home. And she made this super fun, clever 3-minute professional video that I'm assuming she did on her own. All right, here's a question for our two 20-somethings, Jade and Chandler. The question is, getting your foot in the door to work on a production is challenging. What advice do you have for students and alums to break into the industry during this production freeze, or just to break into the industry in general, whether it's production or any part of it? What would you say, Jade?
I mean, kind of to piggyback off of the question earlier that Mark and Julien were answering, I would say get in where you can. For me, my first internship was in music supervision, and I had an interest in that, but that led to like a development internship the next summer. And I would say you never know like who you're gonna meet And in these times, like, development is still going on, music is still going on, post-production is still going on, and like physical production isn't. So you're not going to come out here and be a PA, you know, in June. That's just not going to happen. But I think there are other ways that you could still get into a company that might not be your top choice, but it might lead to other opportunities.
I love that. And I mean, I can speak from my own experience. I never thought I didn't think I was going to do journalism or particularly television broadcast. I started as an intern at a PR firm, and then I interned. Because of that internship, I got an internship at MTV. I decided to try that in production, and then decided to pivot to Entertainment Weekly, where I worked for 17 years. But without those other two internships, which quite frankly were not that related to journalism, I still probably wouldn't have gotten into Entertainment Weekly. So you can have different kind of experiences that doesn't have to go in a straight line, basically. Chandler, how would you answer that question?
Yeah. One, I really loved what Geeta said about you can take a moment and you don't have to be it right now. And so I think that what this time has showed us in all industries is like, maybe this is a time to pause and really reflect. And so I think that this moment with what everyone is saying can really be a time for you to see like, who are the people that you want to talk to, and not this forced relationship, but who's someone whose mind that you just want to know more about these things that are happening, that shared interest and passion. So I really encourage that of this might not be the time where it's like, hey, can I get a job? But this can be a moment to really pick someone's brain apart and have this like natural relationship that isn't necessarily forced. Because I think, again, this moment has shown us the importance of human connection. And I think everyone who is getting reached out to now really appreciates that sort of authenticity of, hey, I just want to know you as a person in this time now that we have some time. So emphasizing everything everyone has said as well as that.
The next question that I want to first direct to Julien, and Geeta, you know, I had you on this question too, and I feel like you touched on a little bit, so that's fine if you don't want to say anything else, but if something else comes to your mind, you should. And the question is, what are a few productive things we can be doing during this quarantine that will help us gain experience and prepare us for a creative industry? And Geeta, I loved your answer about, you know, studying scripts and film. So if you have anything else you want to add to that after Julien, you can. But Julien, what would you say?
I think honestly that was a great way of looking at it. I think it's it is really important right now to take advantage of the time. You know, if your goal is to be in the entertainment industry, then market reference, really knowing who everyone is, trying to understand how the business works. If you're interested in film, read a lot of books about studios or about agencies or about the way in which film or television get made. There are a lot of great ones available, and they give an overview of the industry. And even though the names have changed, a lot of the patterns of behavior and a lot of the existential questions, you know, that we face are the same. You know, the problems were different. Maybe it was video to DVD, or it was, you know, basically nothing to video. But, you know, now we deal with that with streaming, and we'll deal with something else tomorrow. And I think that getting inside of the minds of people who dealt with those transitions is really important, and understanding where the other opportunities are going to be is really important. You know, every one of these areas of the industry are sort of a matrix, a puzzle, and it takes a long time to figure out how things work. It's very confusing if you haven't sort of lived it, and to the degree that you can get some kind of a foundation, it's helpful. I interned at UTA the summer before my senior year, so I knew that I had a job when I went back senior year, and I really spent that entire time reading scripts, reading the trades, reading lots of books about the industry, trying really hard to understand what went on, and then doing a lot of outreach to people, you know, in the industry at all levels. And I learned tons from assistants, you know, at the time, who would really give me tips of things to look at or things to think about. I learned a lot by reading a lot of screenplays and then comparing them to movies. I would take screenplays of movies that existed and then watch the movie at the same time and try to understand how they were structured and why, and what worked and what didn't work. And it's also a great opportunity to really look at the good stuff. watch the good movies, watch the good television shows, read the good, books, so that you can really identify the difference between a good thing and a bad thing. Because once you're really in the industry, people at an entry level, people tend to throw you the worst problems, where there's the least, the least likelihood of success or opportunity once you've actually looked at it. So better to take advantage now of opportunities to really admire the highest level of execution in the craft and the biggest successes.
I recommend watching Turner movies.
Can I add one thing? Sorry.
Yes. Yes.
Just for anybody who somehow this causes a detour, if you were planning on moving out to LA and starting in the industry right away, there are some of us on here who didn't do that. And I think that the experience that I had outside of the industry is very much responsible for how successful I am right now, because I learned how to work, and all of these jobs take a lot of work. So there's something to be said for experience that you bring to LA that others might not have, that distinguishes you from people. So while I think obviously foster your creative voices and your creative instincts always, I think all people should, but also know that other outside experience is valuable. So, don't be discouraged if your path goes a little bit off track right now.
Geeta, anything else you want to add?
Yeah, a few things. One thing is just piggybacking off what Amy said. I was thinking, these are the times I remember when I graduated Duke, because I worked in finance for 2 years before I came out here. I just read about the world. I was so unhappy at my job and wanted to be an artist. I just wanted to be a storyteller. But the funny thing is, I spent so much time just absorbing the world and reading about people's lives and stories. And I didn't do it on purpose, but that's what led me to my first project. Is I was completely and totally confused and fascinated by how wars happened. And so it wasn't like, again, it wasn't like, oh, I want to be a director. It was just this, I think, you bring to it who you are. The other thing is that there's a little trick for all you directors that are on here. I still do this. I will find a movie that I love, and I'll find the script online, and the movie will be, on Netflix or whatever. And I read the script. And after I read the script, I'll take one scene, and I would ask myself as a director, how do I see this scene? How would I direct it? Where would the cameras be? Would the cameras be moving? I ask myself all these questions, like, what if I had to direct it right now? How would I block it? Put people in places. And then I would watch the scene on in the film. And I won't watch, I'll make sure it's a film I don't know very well. That's a really great, at least for me, it was a great exercise of just understanding why these incredible filmmakers do things the way they do them. The last thing I was going to say is, as far as writing and learning story and doing it, doing the kind of 3-act structure stuff that I was talking about. Some of you might be like, oh, I'm independent. I like the outside the box stuff. I like to meander. I get you. I totally get it. I feel the same way. But the one beautiful thing about learning story and the strict tentpole, 4-quadrant, all these words you'll hear of commercial films, is that you learn rules and then you can break them. So I don't think you should shy away from that kind of stuff. Just because you might like films that are different.
Great. We've touched a little bit on this, but I want to ask the question more pointedly, and this is for Robb and for Amy. What books, movies, or resources would you recommend that Duke students or young alums check out during this time, either as a way to escape or to continue to develop? We've talked about this a little bit, but is there anything, Robb, that you want to give a shout out to or mention?
Yeah, for sure. One of the things, because I was a lawyer before becoming a writer, as I mentioned, and so coming out here, I was not going to do any more school. So my personal grad training was listening to podcasts. So like there's one called the Writers Panel, which just goes in and interviews showrunners and staff writers, and people talk about how they broke into the business and what it's like to pitch and what it's like to be in a writer's room. And I literally just listened to every single episode of that podcast, just hearing stories, hearing all the different ways people interact, hearing challenges that they've had. hearing successes that they've had, and just learning, you know, like as everybody's been saying, learning the way the business works. And then as a comedy writer, I listen to a bunch of like just comedy podcasts of people having conversations and kind of understanding where people come from. As far as what you like, I mean, I've done a lot of the things that people have mentioned too, as far as grabbing a TV script, having it in your lap while you watch the show to see how those decisions got made. And actually, when I moved out here, just because I felt like I was always playing catch up, I used to try to watch like every single comedy on television, like every single new pilot, everything that came on. So at least I knew what it was. And what I learned after about 3 years of doing that is that I lost my sense of like taste. People would say, what do you like? And I'd say, well, I've watched everything. They're like, no, but what do you like? And I couldn't really answer it. So I started like backing back out to say, what actually resonates with me? Why? Like when you're watching something, figure out why you like it. Is it the actors? Is it the setup? Is it the story? Like, what is it about it that you actually like and appreciate? Because, you know, as a television writer, as you move up through the ranks, everything you do is just a decision. You have to decide what's funny. You have to decide what goes on the screen. You have to decide what makes the story work or what makes it not work and how to fix it. It's all decisions, and having a sense of taste, knowing what's good and what's bad and what you like and what your sensibility is still something I'm very much working on. But that helps you drive towards something. Like you have an opinion, you have a voice, you have an identity. And for a writer, that comes across on the page. Just like right now, I've been reading a couple of my old things just to, you know, see where I came from and what my next ideas are and things that I repeat and things that I do over and over again, because I'm talking to people, trying to pitch things, trying to put myself in a position to sell something and thinking about how to best describe quickly the way I do what I do and what it is that I do. And you start to see patterns. If you work enough and you start to write enough things, you start to see patterns in your own work. And ultimately, that's what you're selling. You're selling your ability. You walk into a room, you try to express yourself very clearly about who you are and where you came from and the way you see the world. And hopefully the person sitting across from you gets it quickly. They want to be a part of it. They want to work with you to do something. So, you know, when you have all this time at home and you're trapped with your family, like figure out where you came from and what those stories are and the things that shaped you and why you see the world the way you do. And are you a person when you get pranked that gets mad easily or you laugh? Like I've been thinking about those things, like just how, like what makes you tick? If you can figure those things out as a writer, that's how you sell yourself in a room. And when you're ultimately trying to make something, that's what has to come across to the people who you hope to make something with so that they know that you're the right person to see that thing all the way through. So like constantly look at yourself, figure out what you really like, and that'll really help guide you through.
That's great. Amy, what would you say to that same question?
I would say, well, one, I'm sure on Mark's list, he has the John August and Craig Mazin podcast script notes.
Yep.
So that's one that I like to listen to. And beyond that, I actually go outside of the scripted space, the comedy space for inspiration, because that's what I process for work. And I'm a big believer in the Jane Kenyon quote, have good sentences in your ears. So really it's just any delicious writing that you can pick up and consume. So you start to get the rhythms of different languages down. I think can especially help people who want a position like mine where I'm dealing with different tones and I'm dealing with different voices. And it's not necessarily about my voice so much as a larger slate of tones. And then beyond that, just as far as like something that I picked up before quarantine was the Big Goodbye by Sam Wasson, which is like a good classic Hollywood book about the making of Chinatown. And Chinatown doesn't have to be your favorite film to enjoy it, but that's been kind of my lighter, more delicious read at night. And then watch Survivor with my family.
Survivor is great. Last night was bananas.
It was good.
Channel. I would join the Criterion channel, and you get classic movies and newer, more obscure movies. It's relatively cheap, 99 bucks a year, 10 bucks a month. And, you know, you get the commentary, film commentary. There's nothing better than Criterion movies to understand how movies are made. There's literally nothing better. It's free, nearly free film school.
That's so true.
I would 100% do that.
Okay, here's a question that I want to still direct to Geeta and Jade, but now Rob, I want you to think about this one too. The question was, how difficult is it to, you know, make a stable income and pay the bills? Is it better to go straight into the entertainment industry and work your way up, or to have a safer, more kind of corporate job and then kind of make your way in, you know, on the side? And there's no one path, but when you think about the way things are today, would you guys have a different answer to that than you normally would? So let's start with Geeta on that.
Oh, this has been the heart of everything for so many years until just recently. I was the first one born in America in my family. And so my parents, having this immigrant background and, you know, things that you can read into it, just, you know, they didn't have a lot of money, and they did a lot to pay for me to go to Duke. I was the first one to go in the US. It was a lot of a great responsibility, I felt, to make them proud and make money. And wanting to be an artist is kind of the opposite of that for many, many years, if you're not lucky to be, you know, killing it right away. So when I started, I had no money, but I took this job in finance for 2 years, and I saved up. And then when I came to LA, I, you know, had a little bit saved up and had written all these letters to all these alums, including Dave Karger. And one of those letters resulted in this assistant job that I got. And as I was working the assistant job, I got paid peanuts. I mean, very, very little, and worked for free most of the time doing all these, you know, internships and things. So at a certain point, when I decided to be my own artist and leave that security of some sort, it was a big step, because I knew that it's probably the feeling that a lot of you are feeling. You know, if you don't have a job and you're going to come out to LA, how are you going to pay the bills? How are you going to, well, I'll tell you, there was no plan B. When I decided that I couldn't live without storytelling, nothing else was important to me. I became a secretary. I was doing temp jobs all over LA, and I was the happiest, because when I came home on the weekends, or after I saved up a little bit money, I'd take a few weeks off, I was telling stories in my room by myself, writing, and I loved it. To me, that's success. And I've said this to some of you that I've spoken to offline, but, you know, the biggest lesson I've learned in all of this, because I was broke 4.5 years ago. I had sold my car to finish my last film. The biggest lesson I learned is that success is not being on this panel. Success is not being this big director, big whatever. And success is not making money. Success is doing what you love, and you have that in your hands right now. So if you really, really love storytelling, then get a can of beans and tell your stories, because you will be happy. And that's at least how I feel. My friends all had the big houses and the cars, and I went through that whole process of understanding, but that's what I've come to.
Jade, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with so much of what Geeta just said. It's been like the constant struggle for me the past couple of years, because I started as a writer's PA after college, and then I was a showrunner's assistant. And then after season 2 of Luke Cage, I decided I didn't want to be getting people coffee and taking notes and doing all this stuff for a little bit, because I wasn't writing. And so I was fortunate enough to become the director of development for my boss's own company. But I still don't know if I'm doing the right thing. And honestly, this whole thing has been a little bit of a gift to me, because I was going to go back and to look for assistant jobs. And now I don't have to do that. So it's like kind of a little bit of time for me to reflect and write. But all that to say, I still don't have some high paying job. I have a high title. I get to meet great people like Jen Sulky from Amazon and Brian Grazer, people I never thought I would be in rooms with. And I get to sit in on pitches, which is invaluable as a writer. So I think all this to say, like, get a job that also services what you want to do. Like, if you could be a marketing assistant at NBC, I think that would be a great job because that pays the bills, but then you could still write at night. I mean, some people would say just dive in, but I don't know, what Rob, you would say to this, like, just be an assistant on a TV show and go up the ranks, but that didn't feel right to me, so I think you just have to follow what feels right and what, like, your finances allow.
Because the way you did it, Rob, is so rare.
Yeah.
So what's your advice?
So I had a completely other career, and I was an advertising executive. I had saved up some money, and just kind of decided that this was the thing that I had to at least find out whether or not this was my purpose. It felt like it could be, and I had to go give it a shot. The two things that I'll say is, number one, I didn't realize how much of a hustle business this was. Coming from a place where I was the COO of a good-sized advertising agency, I knew I wasn't going to be a great assistant. Like, it would have come off of me. Like, people would have just been like, you are not the guy who's here to get us lunches every day. And I just knew that for me, I just had to hustle my way in through the side door. And I wasn't built for it, honestly. Like, I was an executive who thought that my resume would open doors for me. And very, very quickly in this town, I realized that you have to build relationships, you have to know people, you have to learn how to express yourself, you have to learn how to speak the language out here, and that takes time. And I did it very, very quickly by most accounts, but even now it's still a constant struggle. Like, it's not easy, and it takes a long time, and you have to be willing to be in it for the long haul, and you have to love it, because if you don't love it, it's hard. If you're doing something, like if you're doing it because you think it's going to make you famous and you can't wait to see your name someplace, like, it is not going to get you through. That is not what's going to keep you up at midnight writing a new script or making you work every single weekend to get the next thing out. Like, you will stop. You have to treat it as a full-time job. I came out here and I started working 40 to 60 hours a week, just writing and pushing and, like, just treating it like it was a full-time job. And that's, to me, why it happened more quickly than many other people find, is because I just refuse to stop pushing, and I'm still pushing. I still am constantly trying to meet people and expand and find the people I can partner with and, like, just push as much as I possibly can. So, like, LA is expensive. It's not the easiest place to feel like you're always winning. But like Geeta said, I've never woken up in the morning and thought that I didn't want to go to work that day. I wake up wanting to do what I do. Getting to sit in a room, a writer's room is a 10-hour meeting where you don't get to chill. You don't get to turn off and, like, not pay attention. You have to be on for 10 hours with your boss in the room every single day. And I walk into that environment ready to go. So, like, and that's winning. And for me, if I get to be a showrunner, which is what I want to do, the job only gets harder, and I only see my family less, and I only have less time to myself. Like, but that's what this is. Like, I have to tell these stories. I want to do this job. And you don't have to have that right now. Like, live, figure out what makes you tick, all of those things, so you have great stories to tell. But as you're pushing through it, like, that's what gets you to a place of success.
That's great. Okay, with the last, like, 2 or 3 minutes we have left, Mark, I'll start with you as the elder statesman of the group here.
Come on, Dave. What are you talking about?
You're gonna get the overarching philosophical question. How do you think the impact of this pandemic is going to affect the future of the industry?
Well, it's obviously a lot of speculation now, but there's two answers to the question. Technically, the answer is, will movie theaters survive? Will people just be streaming and there will never be a theatrical experience? I don't think that will be the case, although I think, you know, streaming is really the future, and there will always be a place in the world for seeing a movie in a communal way with other people, laughing together, you know, at a comedy, being scared together. For horror movies, certain movies need to be seen on 30-foot tall screens, you know, but I do think it is inevitable that most people will ultimately be watching their stuff on phones and on their TVs at home. The more interesting question, I guess, is what does this do to the kinds of stories people want to see when this is all said and done? And you know, you could go to history and see how you know, major social and political events influenced the kinds of movies people want. Will people see, you know, stressful horror movies after they've been stressed by this event? Maybe it could be cathartic, right? To see a movie about some other kind of, you know, danger in the world. Will they want something more uplifting? I mean, you have a lot of things colliding right now. You have a presidential election, which will be bitter, and you have this situation, which is also bitter. Coming out the other side, I suspect, you know, people will be more open to thoughtful, philosophical, you know, more dramatic material, maybe even on big screens. Maybe, you know, the way we think, my movies, you have to think about what movie stars, what roles will they want to play? Are they going to want to be an Avenger, or are they going to want to examine what's just happened to all of us? And if that's the case, then, you know, you may be turning back to those Criterion sort of movies, which I hope is the case, because, you know, those are the ones that have stuck with people for a lifetime. They've changed the course of people's lives. They've made them change careers. They've made them, you know, marry somebody they didn't think they'd marry. They've literally, this is literature, this is storytelling, this is very influential stuff. It's the biggest, you know, source of influence for the United States as a country. I think it's important. And I'm, you know, so that you know, I believe, you know, theaters and all that stuff will survive, studios will survive, and all of that. But I think the more interesting, hopefully, change will be in the stories we tell.
Amy, how would you answer that same question, just to wrap us up? Oh, you're muted. You're still muted.
Out on the side. Can you hear me?
Now we can. Start over.
Yes. That was so you couldn't hear my kids. No, I have a lot of the same thoughts in the middle of something like this. Obviously, you can't make some grand statement. You have to, there's a little bit of wait and see, and certainly knowledge that things will change. You don't come out of an event like this without change, but it's hard to say exactly what it is. But beyond what Mark was talking about, I think also it's definitely changed and opened up the way we work. So I can't imagine going back to, you know, the exact type of work dynamic that I had going into this. Everybody, I think, is much more open to meetings like this, whereas you would have taken a flight across the country to meet, you know, with our New York office. You don't necessarily need to do that quite as often. So I think it'll be interesting to see that as well.
That's great. As Chandler just wrote in the chat, we are here for you guys, all of the people that are students or young alums. So do not be shy to reach out to all of us. We all like hearing from you, and we like trying to help in as much as we can. So I just am so appreciative to Geeta and Mark and Amy. I'm looking at everybody, and Julien and Chandler and Jade and Rob. And Amy Unell, you're amazing just for putting this all together. And yes, Liz, old alums too. I'm an old alum too, so we love you too. We're here for you all. So anyway, just because Amy will want me to say there's more of these. There's one tomorrow, there's one on Monday, there's one on Tuesday, there's one in early May. These things are one in a series. So Amy's on it. She's gonna make sure that we all know what's up. Right, Amy Unell? Yeah.
That's
okay.
Thank you, everybody.
So thanks so much. And what day is that? I was gonna say, have a good weekend. What day is it? Thursday. Have a good weekend.
Stay safe and stay well. And I
Bye,
appreciate
everybody. Thanks so much.